What's going on, YouTube? It is Saxon's Take over here. And like promised, we have our day two predictions for the NFL draft. We have our day ones up here. Um, Blake Miller, shock fall. Emmanuel Warren, a lot of people could have as a first round pick. Peter Woods could be a first round pick. Christian Miller. But if we want to recap the first round, we got Mendoza, Reese, Maui Noah, Love, Bailey going to the Chiefs who trade up. Styles going to the Cowboys who traded up. Then you have Tate Bain Downs to the Giants from the Chiefs pick. Tyson with the Dexter Lawrence trade. Then you have Delane Freeling with the Cowboys trade. Fano with the Falcons trade from last year. Vega to the Ravens. Sadiq. Then Jets with Lemon due to the Sauce Gardner trade. Um, Proctor to the Lions. McCoy to the Vikings. Falk to the Panthers. Um, Cooper to the Browns via the Cowboys via the Packers due to the Michael Parsons trade. Dylan Thieneman to the Bears via the Steelers. Pregnon to the Chargers. Mesidor to the Eagles. Zion Young to the Browns due to the Travis Hunter trade. Concepcion to the Steelers after swapping with the Bears. CJ Allen to the Bills. Boston to the 49ers. Simpson to the Texans, or to the Cardinals via the Texans. Giants get McDonald via Kansas City via Los Angeles due to the Trent McDuffie trade, and then Lomu to the Dolphins due to the Jalen Waddle trade. Ihanator and Hood close out that first round. So we're here in round two, and I think something that's kind of fun that the Jets could do is go with their nickel in the future. I don't think Brownlee is stopping anyone from, coming in and competing at that spot. And I think Avion Terrell's such a fun player that I think he goes at the top of round two here. I think as the Jets, you're trying to instill an identity in this team that you can move forward with. Tough player, tough player, tough player. I think, that's what you're looking for. Some toughness, some grit, some determination, some guys that love football. Those are three guys that do love football. And I think you've smacked it out of the park right now if you are New York. So Avion Terrell at 33, I think makes a lot of sense. Here at 34 to Houston, I think you just got to cash in on the fact that Blake Miller is still here. I think it's an anomaly that he's here. I don't know how he fell so far, but um, yeah, we're gonna have to go with Blake Miller here for Houston. He's gonna be your backup to Braden Smith right away, and then he can eventually start for you. But he's a really good player. He may even be able to slot in that guard in case of injury and stuff like that. But I think Blake Miller's incredible. And I think it makes a lot of sense for him to go to Houston, maybe even at 28. I could see him go at 23 to the Eagles as well, though. So we'll see where Blake Miller goes. I have him at 34 here to Houston, and I think that's a home run pick for Houston. So two Clemson Tigers off the board here at 33 and 34. And this is going to be our third one in a row. We got the edge rusher out of Clemson, TJ Parker, headed over to Tennessee. They go with Jeremiah Love to begin with. And if we go to the Titans here, who are at the bottom, because they don't have a pick for a while, you can see TJ Parker there and Jeremiah Love. So you get your edge rusher that Robert Sala loves. So you're able to pass up on David Bailey at pick 4. You get Jeremiah Love there, and then you're still able to get a very dependable edge rusher in TJ Parker, who I think can play a lot of snaps for you at pick 35. I think he could be a back end of the first round guy. I think he could be a top of the second round guy. And I think him to Tennessee does make a lot of sense. Um, and I think it's an easy selection there for them at 35. At 36 to the Las Vegas Raiders, I have them going with an interior defensive lineman here, and I have them going with Caleb Banks. It seems like the Raiders really like Caleb Banks. It seems like everyone around them wants them to really, really think about going with Caleb Banks. I think he's just an interior force, and obviously those injuries are really a concern. That's why I don't want him for Houston, but maybe they see something there being able to pair him with Max Crosby, take some pressure off of Max Crosby, and just be the athletic freak with the length and the size and the athleticism that he does possess. Just be a freak on that interior force. Maybe get to opposing quarterbacks, but stop the run at a high rate too. The film's a little inconsistent for me to like Caleb Banks, but I can see the highs with him, and I can see why some people really just buy on Banks's highs. And in this case, he goes at 36 to the Las Vegas Raiders. Here at 37, you have the Jets trading out of their first round pick. I have them trading out here as well because the Giants do not have a third round pick. So where are they? I guess, well, can I see them? New York Giants here. You can see they only have 37 left in this, and we still have a whole nother round to go. So I actually have the Miami Dolphins moving up with the New York Football Giants, and they're going to give up 43 and 94, in my opinion. And maybe you can just offer this without forcing it. No, we're gonna have to force it, of course. But 93 or 43 and 94 to the New York Giants in turn for pick number 37 to the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins did go with Delane, but I don't think that stops them from going with another corner. I think they need two in this draft. Um, I think with everyone that's available, you do kind of have to really prioritize going with a corner. And I think Chris Johnson's perfect for the way they play. Um, you get Delane, you get Chris Johnson. You could definitely consider a receiver here. Chris Bell's certainly an intriguing one. I don't know about that ACL injury, but I could see Jeremy Bernard being a utility guy somewhere, and I think that's a good fit. But I think Chris Bell could certainly be intriguing to the Dolphins at 37 just because he could be that number one threat for you down the field. And, if he's able to, be that explosive guy coming off that ACL injury, then that can certainly be something for you. And you know what? I changed my mind. I was going to go with Chris Johnson, but I'm going to go with Chris Bell here at pick number 37 to the Miami Dolphins. So they trade up to go get their wide receiver to kind of stop a team like the Chiefs or the Browns from going and getting a wide receiver. I know the Browns went with Omar Cooper Jr. earlier on, but the Chiefs have not done anything in the wide receiver department. They went with David Bailey. So they move up to prevent the Chiefs from drafting a wide receiver there. At 38 to the Texans, I think it's another great board for you because Peter Woods and Kristen Miller are both here. Um, I have you going with two Clemson Tigers to start out this draft. I have you going with Peter Woods here. I think he's, a three tech more so than Kristen Miller. I really like Kristen Miller's first step, and I do think he has pass rush upside because of how quick that first step is. But I think if you're looking for a guy that can wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks from the interior defensive line position, it's rare to see what Peter Woods did in 2023 and 2024 from that three tech position. So I mean, if you talk about first step, you're talking about Kristen Miller. You're also talking about Peter Woods, and I think Houston has had a slam dunk of a draft so far. If you're able to get Miller and Woods, especially after trading down from 28, so really like the way that's panning out for Houston. But um, we're here at 39 with the Cleveland Browns, and the fact that Emmanuel McNeil Warren on the board is still on the board is alarming to me. And I actually have this team right here. Actually, funnily enough, I have them giving up future capital to move up to 39, maybe like a future five. Um, so, I'll have that four going from Indianapolis to Cleveland in order for the Colts to move up and go get Emmanuel McNeil Warren to play that back end safety, which they so desperately need. They don't have a first round pick due to the Sauce Gardner trade, but they do need some help on the back end still. And I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who's a rangy athletic safety, would really help them. In their pursuit to be a lot better of a defense. I think they need some help on the defensive line behind Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner because you can't really rely on them due to their injury history. But I think the Colts, giving up only future capital and a fourth to move up and go get Emmanuel McNeil Warren is a great piece of business by them. And I think it makes a lot of sense for them to try to move up in this draft to go get one of their guys at safety. That leads us to the Chiefs here at number 40. And after going with David Bailey in the first round, they are still looking to the defense here. And in my opinion, the guy that I was about to take for the Dolphins, if he's here at 40, then I think makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs, who like to press a lot, like to play a lot of man, and we'll get away from that interior offensive line. Look to the corners, and I think Chris Johnson makes a lot of sense for them. Really good zone coverage guy. I think a decent press guy too. I know he's more suited for off with zone coverage than press, but I think he's capable of doing it. He has really good technique, and I think the Chiefs could really make him into a decent cornerback there. So, two defensive picks to start out for the Chiefs, but I think two picks that you really need to make because you lost a lot in terms of your secondary and free agency. And then you really need help on that edge, but I think you need to look to receiver sometime soon. But you're not really making any trades because you already did your big trade to move up and go get David Bailey there. As it leads us to number 41 with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is your first pick in the draft after going and getting Dexter Lawrence. So could you trade back potentially? Um, I don't know if I love your options for you. I could see Houston. I could see San Francisco. But I think you stick and pick here because you need linebacker that badly. And I am actually going to give you Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech to go potentially be your Mike, potentially be your Sam, potentially be your Will. He could do any of the three and still make a play on the ball. So you take him with that in mind. But I think he's going to be a leader on that defense for years and years to come. And you do need that guy who's going to be a very reliable piece at linebacker for you. So I think that's a great pick for the Bengals there to really establish some leadership on their defense with Jacob Rodriguez. Number 42 to the New Orleans Saints. They went with Ruben Bain to start out. I think they could, maybe even look back with Christian Miller and Lee Hunter still available, but I have them going receiver here. I have a fun pick. I have Jeremy Bernard for, that intermediate game. Such a good pass catcher underneath as well as in the middle parts of the field. I think he could be a lot of fun in New Orleans. He's kind of that jack of all trades wide out for you that I think you could have a lot of fun with schematically. So, Jeremy Bernard to the Saints for me, I think makes a lot of sense. And I have him going here at 42, which is slightly higher than what people have him ranked at, especially PFF. I think they had him, where did they have him? 49, so spots higher than PFF, but Jeremy Bernard there at 42, I think is a fun pick. As we have the Giants here at 43, you really need help on that offensive line to replace Daniel Falele, and you know Evan Neal. I don't know who you're running with that guard right now, but it's between Rutledge and Basantis. I'm gonna go with Basantis here. I think he's more um, not pro ready, but he has the ability to stop or block the pass a little bit better than Rutledge does. I initially had Rutledge, but I switched it to New York, or switched it for New York because I think it's better for them. With the way they play, with the way John Harbaugh plays, I think it makes a lot of sense for New York to go get a Basantis who is going to develop into a very good player in the NFL, in my opinion. So that's the selection there. I think it makes a lot of sense for New York as we move on to the other team in New York and the Jets, as I have them taking a trade. I have them trading with the Detroit Lions, who are actually not even offering a trade here. But with pick 50, they are going to give up 128 from Houston and move up to 444 or 44, excuse me. And they are going to, after getting Caden Proctor on the offensive line, go to the defensive line with Kristen Miller available to them. I think it makes a lot of sense for them. I think they do need interior defensive linemen. After Owens Enrique had a meh year after you paid him a lot. And I think Christian Miller's such a good player. I could see him going in the first round. In this case, he falls a little bit to 44. And I think the Lions are the team that capitalizes and goes with that interior defensive lineman that I think is going to be a very good one in the NFL. So Christian Miller to the Lions there at 44. At 45, I have the Ravens going with someone who I'm not that big of a fan of, to be honest, but I think some people really, really like him. And that is actually Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. Um, I think some people really like the idea of Stowers as a receiving tight end. And in this case, he goes to Baltimore to back up Mark Andrews, maybe develop into a little bit of a blocker in the NFL. But I think he's a decent player. I struggle to see the blocking upside with him, but maybe if he's not asked to do that too much in Baltimore, then he'll be a decent player, um, just as a receiving threat at the tight end position. So not on the end line, but lining up as a big slot potentially. Eli Stowers is a really good receiver though, and a really good player. So I have him at 45 to the Ravens to be a little bit of an offensive weapon that they can utilize in a lot of different ways. And 46, this stops the Cassius Howell fall. I initially had Josiah Trotter, excuse me, not Jeremiah Trotter. Josiah Trotter here at 46, but I am changing it up. I'm going with Cassius Howell here. Buccaneers, if we look at their draft, they went with Kenyon Sadiq in the first and Cassius Howell in the second. I think they've got a good return so far in this draft. I don't think they've really moved their picks so much or so far, so I think it's a good sign for them. That they just have a lot of draft capital moving into it, so potentially expendable draft capital. Um, and I think Cassius Howell can be a very good player in the NFL, and I think he fits kind of that Buccaneers pass rusher that's a little smaller, but they're going to get to the quarterback, Hassan Reddick, Shaquille Barrett. You think of, so maybe Cassius Howell is the next one. We don't know, but we'll see. And I think that's a fun pick there at 46. It's just the arm length that's really the concern for me. Um, so yeah, Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M there at 46, and here at 47 to the Cleveland Browns. I have them going with Brandon Cisse. I think they could use some help opposite of Denzel Ward. I still think they need to look corner in this draft. And I think Brandon Cisse is a great player. He's got good athleticism, very similar to the likes of a Jalen Kilgore in terms of athlete. And you can see that South Carolina pipeline to the NFL with really good athletes. Eamon Wari, Cisse, Kilgore. I mean, even next year, Dylan Stewart at edge is an incredible athlete. So he's going to be a top 5 pick. But Cisse, incredible athlete. I can see him go in the back half of the first round. I can see him go at the top of round 2. In this instance, he goes mid round 2 to the Cleveland Browns to potentially be their CB2. But I mean, we'll see there. Here at 48 to the Atlanta Falcons, they did not trade up for any potential right tackle. If we look at their draft capital, I think they need to consider tackle at maybe 79. Markel Bell could be someone you consider at 79. Austin Barber, I really like as a player. Isaiah World's got good size. I mean, Travis Burke could even sneak into that range. I think he's a decent player. But here at 48, I think you got to fix your interior defensive line because, I mean, if we look at their D tackles, not even there. Meh, meh. So I have the top of the board going again, and in this case, I have Lee Hunter to the Falcons at pick number 48. I think it's a really good pick for them, actually. I think, after losing their first round pick this year, if you're able to go get Lee Hunter, I think he's a decent player. It's just the pad level that's really a concern. Similar to Caleb Banks, they play with their pads too high, which leads them to get drawn back a little bit, but they're going to wreak havoc so much in the NFL just because of their size, their athleticism, their freak of natures. And I think it's a great pick there for um, the Falcons there at 48. 49 to the Vikings. They've gone with Jermon McCoy in the first, and then they have 82 and 97 as well, compensatory picks. But if we look at the roster, there's something that's a glaring need, and that's running back. I don't think Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones are really that great anymore. Tackle's somewhat of a need because you can't rely on Darrison O'Neal to play every single snap for you in the season. The interior offensive line is actually very, very good, in a really good spot. But I think you do need to look to that running back room. And the fact that Jadarian Price is here, I think you've just got to get the prices right. And that's your pick there at 49. So you start out with Jermon McCoy, and then you go get Jadarian Price. And I think you have to look safety next throughout the rest of this draft. For the Jets here at pick 50, I have them going with a will linebacker. If we look to their roster, you can see Francisco Malino is not stopping you from getting anyone. You did bring in Mario Douglas, but I do think you still need to address that linebacker room. And someone that I absolutely love at linebacker is Jake Golday, who's 6'4", 240, but a really good athlete at the position. He's kind of an anomaly in terms of size and how well he covers and how well he plays the run. I think he could be a really productive player in the NFL. Jets get a steal there. I think they've had probably one of the best drafts so far. You have Reese. Reese, Lemon, Terrell, Golday. I mean, you're smashing it out the park. You don't have a third round pick, but you definitely do have the capital to, kind of move around there. You have 2 first round picks next year. You still have 103, 128, 140. So, I mean, we'll see what you do. You picked up an extra pick to move down from 44 to 50, and I think you could use that capital to move back up again. But we'll see what they decide to do. Here at 51, though, with the Carolina Panthers, I do have the Houston Texans, who are actually here to move up, and I have them giving up 106 for 51 and 119. So, not anything that's going to happen in this video, but I think this could be someone like this. But we'll do this just for the sake of the video. Texans get 51 and 119. Panthers get 59 and 106. And Houston is going to use this to move up and go get their guard of the future. It would have been Basantis here. That's what I initially had. I decided to switch it just because I think Basantis fits the Giants a little bit more than Rutledge does. And I think it works out better for Houston. You get Blake Miller and Peter Woods. You still have pick 69 to you. You could trade back from there as well. We'll see what you decide to do, but I am going to go with Keelan Rutledge here at 51. So you do what the usual Houston Texans motto is, and then to move back and then move around the board. So you pick up 34, and then you move back up to 51, so you can go get your guy. I think Keelan Rutledge is a good player, and that is why he goes here at 51. Moving on to pick 52, we have the Green Bay Packers here, and I have them going with a nickel. And it's the top of the board. It's D'Angelo Pons. I just think he's such a physical player that I think teams are going to love him. It's the size that's a concern, but I think he's going to be an incredible player in the NFL. I don't think size matters for him. Maybe if you bulk him up to like a 185, then you'll be fine. I just think he's an incredible player. He plays so tough and so physical that I think the Packers need that defensively, a guy that's really just going to rile the opposing offenses up. D'Angelo Pons, such a good player. I think he's going to be a great player in the NFL. Was a great player at Indiana this past season and has been his whole collegiate career just because of the intensity and the toughness he plays with. But so excited to see how he does in the NFL. I have him going here at 52 to the Packers, dropping a little bit in terms of his PFF ranking just because of his size. At 43, he drops to 52, so about 9 spots there. Here at 53 to the Steelers, I have another corner coming off the board, so they are absolutely flying in this round. You've had Cisse, Johnson, Terrell, and then pawns just go. And I have Keith Abney, just a guy that I think he can play the boundary. Was really, really good at Arizona State this past season. I think there's not a huge I mean, Trayton Stukes, I don't know if he's an actual corner, but he's got good size. He's just an older dude. Jalen Everett can play boundary. Takario Davis got good size as well. Um, Jalen Kilgore is going to be a nickel, but he's got good size. Julian Neal, I really like as an athlete. Got good size as well. Hezekiah Massis, who I talked about last video, I really like as well. Decent size there too. But I mean, Keith Abney, I think has got really good technique, and I think could be a boundary corner there in Pittsburgh because they need someone opposite of Joey Porter Jr. I don't know what the role Jalen Ramsey's going to play next year, so you get some insurance here with Keith Abney at pick 53, which I think makes a lot of sense for you. As we move on to 54 with the Eagles, I've got the Eagles addressing that Reed Blankenship void that they left. If you look at the draft so far, they've just gone with Akeem Mesidor because I think they need that instant production off the edge. But if we look to pick 54, I think they could use again that Reed Blankenship replacement. I think AJ Halsey's perfect for them. I think he's very good against the run, good in coverage as well. He's a physical safety. I think he's not afraid to come downhill, lay the boom, but also not horrible in coverage either. So maybe you could say it's a long-term replacement and an improvement over Reed Blankenship. We'll see how he performs over in Houston, but AJ Halsey, a great player, I think would be a great fit to the Eagles there at pick 54. So they put the pick in there. At 55, I can't believe this dude's still available. I think the Chargers could use a consistent presence off that edge. Maybe even, the player post Khalil Mack to come in and do a role, long term. But I mean, the fact that Malachi Lawrence is still here with the athleticism, the length, the twitchiness, the pass rush he possesses, I think is insane. Um, I think if the Chargers see him there at 55, it's a no brainer. I mean, he could certainly go where TJ Parker went, and I wouldn't bat an eye. And then, it depends on how the board goes, but you could see TJ Parker go like 38 to Houston or something like that at edge. Um, Definitely could have been that Cassius Howell pick, but he falls a little bit down the board, gets overlooked a little bit. Chargers get him there at 55. The twitchy edge out of UCF and Malachi Lawrence in 50 or at 56. Welcome to the draft, um, Jacksonville. You have your biggest void at linebacker following the Devin Lloyd loss in free agency. If we look at your linebacker room, I mean, Foye is a good player. But then other than that, I think Jack Kaiser is decent, but then you don't really have much. I think you could get a very good linebacker in my opinion, and that is Josiah Trotter out of Mizzou. I think this makes a lot of sense for them. He's a rangy linebacker. He's got very good athleticism. I think he's very good in the run game. Maybe some work to do in coverage, but I think the way that Foye plays really allows, these linebackers to play to their strengths. I think Foye Lucon's one of the better linebackers in the league. And I think Josiah Trotter would have some really good development alongside him, especially with the way the Jags defense plays. I think Josiah Trotter's a good fit. He can just fly around to the ball. And I think that's a great pick for the Jaguars there at 56. This is a guy that I think could go in the 40s. I really like him that much. But in this case, again, like Malachi Lawrence, he falls a little bit, goes there at 56. And then here at 57, to the Chicago Bears. I actually have Skylar Bell here. I think this is just such a fun toy. You lose DJ Moore, and you get someone who's basically going to produce the same way that DJ Moore did, and maybe not even cause as much of a fuss. And Skylar Bell, I think just Ben Johnson would have a lot of fun using him. Had incredible production over at UConn. Age, I mean, he's a little bit older. He'll be 24 at his rookie year, but 28 at the end of his first deal. I think he will have one more contract left in him. Long-term contract left in him. But, I mean, great player Skylar Bell is. I think could have a lot of fun over there in Chicago. Ben Johnson would with him. It makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, to fill that void that DJ Moore left, and I think Skylar Bell is the perfect player to do so. Here at 58 to the San Francisco 49ers, I have them going with an edge rusher after going with Denzel Boston in the first. They could definitely trade here to get some more draft capital. They don't pick again until 127. They don't have a third-round pick due to the Odigizua trade. But I do have them going with an edge here, and I have them going with Derek Moore out of Michigan. I think it makes a lot of sense for them. Just uberly productive in the Big Ten last year, and I think he's a very good edge. He's not small. He's 6'3", 260. Come on. But, I mean, the length is a concern, but I think he'll be a very good edge rusher in the league, and I think he's a great pair with Nick Bosa there over in San Francisco. I think they could look to edge in round 1. I think they could look to it in round 2, and they do it here with Derek Moore out of Michigan. Here at 59, this is the Panthers pick after trading with Houston out of 51. I realize now that Houston kind of got a fleece with getting 119. You move back 8 spots, and then they move up 13 in round four. I mean, yeah, it'd probably be 106 for 158 or something like that, but ignore that. It doesn't factor into this video. Um, at 59, though, I do have the Panthers going with a wide receiver here after going with Keldrick Falk in the first round, who I think is going to be a solid piece along your defensive line to pair with Derek Brown, who's a great player. I think also out of Auburn, so you get that connection there too. But I have you going with Chris Brazzell here. I think you have your intermediate guy with Tet. You have Jalen Coker, who's a really good slot as well, but I think you need that burner. Um, and I think, Chris Brazzell is certainly that for you. You pick again at 83, but I think Chris Brazzell is such a speedy guy with such good size that I think the Panthers could really consider him over there in round two just to be that wide receiver three. I think you can look tight end here as well. I like Roush in this range. I like Delp in this range. Um, I even like Max Clare in this range, but none have gone off the board yet, so you don't push yourself too hard. You think you can get one at 83 there. At 62, the Bears, I have the New Orleans Saints trading up with them, and that is so they can go get their linebacker after losing to Mario Douglas. I have them giving up 73 and 136 for pick 60. Maybe get a late round pick in there if you're Chicago, um, or if you're New Orleans, but it doesn't really matter in this case. But here at pick 60, I do have you going with Anthony Hill Jr., such an athletic linebacker, and I think could be a really good producer right away in the NFL if he's able to play a little bit more physical. I think he can get coached into that, though. I don't think it's that hard of a fix. Maybe it's a mental thing, but I think he's a really good player. And I think it makes a lot of sense there for New Orleans at pick 62 go with Anthony Hill Jr. So they trade up 13 spots. They give up 136 to Chicago to do so. So Chicago's kind of just stacking up picks here. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 6 left. Um, yeah, 6 left in the rest of this draft. So they have 8 total. So they have a good sum left to go so do some things around the board if they want to. But Anthony Hill there at 60 is my selection, and we're here at 61 with the Los Angeles Rams. I think Skylar Bell would be perfect for them. I like the idea of Ted Hurst there too. To be, the X receiver post Devontae Adams, but I have someone that I think can produce in the immediate, and that is Antonio Williams out of Clemson. I'm a big fan of Antonio Williams. Have had him as a draft sleeper for a while. I think he's just such a good receiver. I think he could go in round two. I think he could go round three as well. But I'm a big fan of Antonio Williams. I think he could be really good in the slot for uh, the Rams. I think, they do use two wide receivers mostly, so it's going to be a lot of Devontae Adams and Puka. But if one of them go down, I think Antonio Williams is a very serviceable receiver who can come in and produce for you right away. And I think it's another good weapon for Stafford to target because he doesn't drop the ball too much. 1.8% drop rate this past season with 72 targets is pretty incredible. So, really good player in my opinion, Antonio Williams, and he lands here at 61 to the Los Angeles Rams. I think a great fit for him. And now we welcome the Broncos to the draft party. I think if Anthony Hill's there at 62, that's definitely something they can consider. They don't have another pick in this draft until 108 though, so maybe you trade back. I don't have them trading back though. I do have them going along the defensive line on the interior, and I do have them going with Grayson Holton here. Maybe you want a bigger guy, but I think Grayson Holton is such a good pass rusher from the interior defensive line. And I think that's what the Broncos really pride themselves on is not, um, stopping everything really well, but just getting to the quarterback really well. Nick Bonito is a specialist in that. John Franklin Myers is really good in doing so. Zach Allen's good in doing so. I think you need a pairing to Zach Allen, though, and I think Grayson Holton is a perfect one for them. So that's why he goes there at pick 62. At 63 to the Patriots, I do have them trading out of this pick, and I have the Las Vegas Raiders moving up. Funnily enough, they're right at the top of here. I have them giving up 67 and 175 to move up. The Patriots have a plethora of picks. Um, they have 10 left. They get an extra one there, moving back 4 spots. And the Raiders are moving up to go get a potential safety, nickel, corner, whatever you want him to be. But I really like Traden Stukes' game. Obviously, he's a little bit older, but I think could be an instant contributor. I think he could take over Polamalu's spot over there in Las Vegas. And yeah, I'm putting this draft card in for the Raiders. You move up 4 spots to kind of get the Seahawks away from picking a DB here, and you go with Traden Stukes. To close out this round, though, I do have the Seahawks going back to the defense after going with Colton Hood in the first round. You don't have a lot of picks in this draft, so maybe you want to trade back a little bit. You certainly could, but I am going to stick and pick here, and I'm going to go with Gabe Yakis out of Illinois. I think he's a guy that can play 3 downs for them. At the edge, maybe you want R. Mason Thomas to be that DPR guy, but I really like Yakis' game. He had 12 sacks this past season for Illinois. Really productive, and I think could be a starter immediately for Seattle, if not develop into a very good player over there. So that closes out round 2. If we want to recap, you've got Terrell, Miller, and Parker. So a triple Clemson to start out the second round. And then you get Banks, Bell, and Woods. Another Clemson. So 4 in the first 6 were in Clemson. McNeil, Warren, Johnson, Rodriguez, Bernard, Basantis, Miller, Stowers, Howell to close out the first half. And then you got Cisse, Hunter, Price, Golday, Rutledge, Pons, Abney, Halsey, Lawrence, Trotter, Bell, Moore, Brazel, Hill, Williams, Halton, Stukes, and Yakis. And now we move on to round 3, where the Arizona Cardinals are the first team that are on the clock. So to start out round 3, we have the Arizona Cardinals going with an edge rusher because right now they have Sweat, who's 30, and that's about it. You have Walter Nolan on the interior, but I don't think Darius Robinson's stopping you from going out and getting an edge. You don't really have a 3-down guy here, but I really like R. Mason Thomas's game, so that is who the selection is there at 65. Really good pass rush guy. He's just a little bit lighter than a lot of other dudes. Very similar to Cassius Howell, but I think could be productive in the NFL as a pass rush guy, and that's exactly what he's going to do over there in Arizona. So at pick 65, it is R. Mason Thomas. At 66 to the Tennessee Titans, I have them going with an interior offensive lineman who's listed as a tackle here at the top of the, or second to top of the board in Jennings Dunker. I think he's a great player. I think he could come in at guard and do a job right away for Tennessee, who's killed this draft so far, in my opinion. I think you've had a great draft if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. That's your last pick so far, but you get Love, Parker, and Dunker. I think you've got to be happy with that if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. Sorry, I don't know what happened with my mouse there. It kind of just got jammed. But Cardinals had a great draft too. Maui Noah, Simpson, and Thomas. Falcons, I mean, Lee Hunter at 48 is great. Ravens, I don't like the Stowers pick, but I think he's a decent player. CJ Allen there's decent. Panthers has been all right. Bears has been very solid. Bengals, Rodriguez at 41 is nice. Browns, I think, are the winners so far. Cowboys, maybe even 2, though. You go get Sonny Styles. Broncos are already done. Lions had a great draft. I think they could be up there. Packers with Pawns is nice. Texans have had a really good draft. Miller, Woods, and Rutledge. Other than that, I think the Chiefs have had a very solid draft. Chargers drafted really well. Raiders drafted really well. Rams have had a decent draft too. The Dolphins, interesting one, but I think it's decent. Who do I think? The Jets. Yeah, the Jets are really set up well with Reese, Lemon, Terrell, Golday. Titans, obviously, I talked about. Commanders haven't had a second pick. I think the Buccaneers have had a really good draft. Same with the Seahawks. 49ers, all right. Eagles having a really good one too. But, I think Jennings Dunker, Dustin Minshew has a really, really good draft class there in Tennessee to play that guard position. At 67, to the New England Patriots, if we look at their edge position, which is where we're going with, you got one, I think. Could you move one of these over? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Harold Landry is really the guy that you're relying on there. Marte Mapu's not even on the team anymore. But I mean, Chaseon's not there anymore. And I'm going with a guy that's another DPR guy, but I think one of the best in this class. I really like Joshua Joseph's game. I really like his bag, and I have him going here at 67 to the New England Patriots. Here at 68, I have the Philadelphia Eagles trading with, or did they already have this pick, or did they? I have no idea what happened, to be honest. Did they have this pick already, or did it happen earlier on? I don't see anything, so I'm guessing they just already had this pick. I'm not tapped in. I'm sorry, I guess. But here at 68, I do have them going with the slot receiver. I don't know if A.J. Brown's going to be here anymore. I definitely could have done that in this one with A.J. Brown, getting traded to New England, but I'll hold it there. They do need a third receiver though, and I do have them going with the receiver here. I have them going with the fun one who can be a gadget guy for them in Zachariah Branch out of Georgia, who I think is such a good player, such an electric player that I think the Eagles could have a lot of fun with schematically. 69 to the Texans. I have them moving down, so they move down and then move up, and now they're moving back down again. This time with the Steelers. Sorry, not the Buccaneers. Pick 69 for this, and then you're giving up, I believe it's 119 as well. So that's what you're doing. You're moving back 7 spots, but you're moving up 20 spots in the grand scheme of things. So you have 2 more picks left in this. And I do have the Steelers moving up to go get their home run hitting running back because right now it's just Jalen Warren. And Caleb Johnson, I don't know what happened to him his rookie year, but I'm going with the home run hitter here, and I have them going with Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. Fumbles are a concern, but I think if you're using him to be an explosive back, then you're going to get the best of him. And I think that's what the Steelers would do if Mike Washington Jr. does go there. So that's the pick there at 69. At pick 70 with the Browns, I think you're in such a good spot. Brandon Cisse is going to be your CB2 on the boundary. And if we look at your, corner room, you have Miles Hayden. That's about it. You don't really have that nickel. And I think this is finally where I have Keontae Scott going. I really, really like him as a player. He's a little bit older, but um, I love him as a player, and I think that's such a good pick for the Browns. I think that was their last one for this mock. But I mean, if you come away with this haul, Browns fans, leave it down in the comment section below. What are you grading it? For me, I think it's an A at least. Freeling, Cooper, Young, Cisse, and Scott, I think is incredible. You really need to work on that secondary, in my opinion, because Denzel Ward can't do it all. But Keontae Scott and Cisse are really good steps in the right direction. Um, so that's who I have going there at 72. The Browns to the Commanders as we go to the bottom. Cardinal Tate at pick 7, I think, is great for them. You could double dip at receiver if you really wanted to. But I do have them going with the defensive lineman here. I think they need to really bolster that interior defensive line. Deron Payne's getting paid a ton. Kinlaw's not been that great. Jason Newton's not a bad player, but I think you need another body in there. And I'm going with another big body guy in Big Citrus to go to the Commanders at pick 71. I think it's a good fit for them, and I think he could do some good things there. And I do think they really need some help on that interior defensive line. After paying Oweh, Chase on good sums of money, maybe even look edge again because you don't know what the long-term future of Chase on is because he only signed to a 1-year, $12 million deal. But I think Orange is a good player in Big Citrus. Do some good things there in um, Washington. 72 to the Bengals. You go with Jacob Rodriguez. I have you going over to the offensive line this time. Your defensive line's incredible. You have Jonathan Allen, and then you're going to have Dexter Lawrence in there. Your edges could use some work. So maybe it's a Dennis Sutton spot, but I do have you going on the offensive line. Caleb Tiernan, I think, is a good player. I think he can play guard in the NFL. I don't know exactly if he'd be potentially a right tackle, but I think he could definitely be a guard. And I think he could develop into a starting guard for the Bengals. So I do have them going with the player out of Northwestern there at 72. At 73 to the Chicago Bears, I'm torn between 2 players here, and they both play center. I'm torn between Logan Jones and Connor Liu. Um, I think Logan Jones is just such a good player with how good of an athlete he is, and I think that's exactly what the Bears look for in centers. They did go out and get someone though, so I don't know if center is the immediate need. If we do look at their team, yeah, they went out and got Garrett Bradbury from the Patriots. Um, could you look to edge here? I mean, you could. Ob- Obviously, you could. Um, and you know what? I think I am going to change it up. I'm going to go with Denina Sutton here at pick 73 to the Bears. I think he's a really good player. And I think he could come in and potentially start right away. But he's such a good athlete that I think could do some really good things there in Chicago. So the Penn State guy goes to the Bears. I think just such a good athlete that it's rare to find him this far down the draft. Um, so I think the Bears could have a lot of fun with him. Dennis Allen could have a lot of fun with Dennis. Um, but I mean, we'll see how he performs in the NFL. I think it's a really intriguing player, though. I really like him. And I think he can go higher than people expect, but he falls a little bit in this one. At 74 to the Kansas City Chiefs, they went with David Bailey and Chris Johnson, and I have them going with a receiver here. And I have them going with Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss. People might say this is an incredible reach. I don't think so. I think he goes in day 2. I could even see him going in round 2. He can run every route on the route tree. You don't know what Rashi Rice is going to give you, but you see his production from Stribling the past 2 seasons been incredible. Um, and I mean, he's so good as a player, in my opinion. Such a good vertical threat. can do a lot of different things with the ball in his hands too. So I think it's fun for Kansas City to go look at a wide receiver like that, or like a wide receiver like Deion Burks, who's just an absolute burner. Um, at wide receiver, I really like his game too. I mean, Bryce Lance, I don't get why he's 62nd, but I think he is a good player too. But um, I think he's probably around 4 to around 5 talent rather than 62nd overall. But Stribling there at 74, I really like for the Chiefs. 75 to the Dolphins. I have them going back to the offensive line. You get Caleb Lomu, who can play anywhere across the offensive line. I have them going with a guard here, and I have them going with Jalen Farmer out of Kentucky, a guy that I really like. A guy that I think if he made it one pick further, I would have had to Houston, but I think he's a good player, young, and I think um, 2023 was arguably his best season. I thought he was, or not 2023, sorry. I thought 2024 was arguably better than 2025. But I mean, PFF sees it a different way. I think he's a good player. I think he could do some good things in the NFL. I think the Dolphins really need to invest on that interior offensive line. Jalen Farmer is a good step in doing so. So that's what they do is get the guard in Farmer out of Kentucky. Here at 76 to Houston, I think this has to be a center for them. Um, I don't know exactly who it would be. I'm between Lou and Jones. I think, if the Bears went Jones, then I would have went Lou. But now that they're both here, I don't know who I'm going to go with. They're my two top centers in this class. I think you're lucky that you get your pick of them this late. I think they could definitely go somewhere around this range. If you're at 59, I think you could look to them. And I think you could look to Rutledge even at 38 already. But I think you've had a fairly good draft so far. You've had two more picks after trading down with the Steelers. Picking up that extra draft capital allows you to move around that board. Maybe even move down a little bit because one of them are going to be there. So maybe like the Packers at 84 intrigues you. But I mean, you have 6 draft slots left in this class. I think you got to make your pick of centers. And to me, I prefer Connor Lew, so I'm going to go with Connor Lew here at 76 to the Houston Texans. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you've gone very, very trenches heavy. So maybe you see that switch up at pick 99. Yet to be seen, but I really like the idea of Connor Lew in Houston just to be a competitor at that center spot headed into next year. Sorry for the pause, but we're moving on to 77 with the Buccaneers here. After the Texans take Connor Lew, the Buccaneers are here at 77. They've gone with, I don't know why it's the Dolphins, Kenyon Sadiq and Cassius Howell. I think here at 77, they could look to linebacker. You're going to miss Levante David a lot, and I know you're not going to find a Levante David this far down the board. But I think that Deontay Lawson's a great player, but I also think you could have a lot of fun with Kyle Lewis out of Pitt. He might be a big nickel, but maybe you could use him in the box still, around the box, so he could cover what a linebacker might usually do. So I think you could have some fun with him in Tampa if you were to make the selection here at 77, and that's what I am going to do. So your last pick in this is going to be Kyle Lewis. As we move on to 78 with the Indianapolis Colts, your last pick in this, unless you wanted to trade out of it, but we're going to stick and pick here, and at 78, we are going to go with interior defensive line, and someone that I think you could use who's just a game wrecker, who I think is a really good player. You can see Rayshon Benny, 6'4", 305. I think he could do some really good things over there in Indianapolis on that interior force. Behind Stewart, behind Buckner, I think he could, develop for a little bit. He's 24, but I think he is a really, really good player. I think he could wreak some havoc for Indianapolis in terms of the run game. He's a very physical, very big player. He's a Jim Harbaugh product, so that's what you're getting out of Rayshon Benny. You're not getting the Sharon Moore players. You're getting the Jim Harbaugh physical defensive lineman. That's what Rayshon Benny is. So I think that's a home run for the Indianapolis Colts there at 78, who seem to have a pipeline of Michigan defensive linemen. So there's that. At 79, the Falcons went with Lee Hunter to begin with, and I think you absolutely slam this draft out of the park if you're able to do this. You only have, 5 more picks here, so maybe you do trade down. And Jacksonville is certainly an intriguing option for you. So maybe you do want to trade here and pick up, just like 81 and like 164. But I think it'd be, like 166 and 203, and then you give up like 215. So we'll do that. The Jaguars do move up. And I did have the Jaguars taking their tight end. And I have my tight end. This would be my tight end 3 in this class technically, but I have him as my tight end 2 overall. I'm not too big of a fan of Eli Stowers. I just see the receiving upside, and I think the Ravens are a team that can bank on this. But I really like Roush. I really like Delp. And I really like Claire. I think those are guys in the same term. But I think the Jags really like their blocking tight ends. So I think I am going to pull the trigger on Sam Roush right here at pick 79 and at pick 80. I did have this already thought of. I had Houston moving up from 99, and they're giving up 99 and 99 and 141 for pick 80, and then they're getting 211 in return. So keeping the amount of picks they have, keeping the amount of flexibility that they do have. They move back 70, but they move up 19, which I think is very important. And they move up to go get their tight end. I don't have Max Clare here. I do have Oscar Delp, who's all the way down here for some reason. But tight end, tight end 3, tight end 4, it's kind of mixed match. Could even be tight end 2 for me, but it's Sadiq and then Roush, and then I would say Delp Clare would be the order of it. So um, I'm a big fan of Delp, and I think that's a great pick there for Houston, who, it's not the trenches, but it's very close to the trenches. You can see what they are aiming to do here, and they have 5 picks instead of you know, what would they have? No, I guess they would have, well, 28, 38, 59, 69. So they would have had 4. They get an extra one in there. Um, and, they're moving around the board a lot in this one, which the Texans usually do, which is why I'm doing it so much. Here at 81, though, I do have the Falcons. If we look to their cornerback room, you can see it's AJ Terrell. I mean, Billy Bowman's a decent player. Kobe Bryant's a decent player, but I think they could use some developmental pieces out on the boundary. And I think Davidson Igbinosun being here is a really nice player. And I think that could be a lot of fun over there in Atlanta. I think Elijah Surratt does make a lot of sense here, too, because you have Drake London, and that's about it. Um, and the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm about to switch up and go with Elijah Surratt here over Igbinosun. And you know what? I'm sticking to it. I'm going Elijah Surratt. My mind just told me that's the right pick, and I think it could be fun for the Falcons. Obviously, they did get some wide receivers in free agency, but I think Elijah Surratt's a good piece for, I guess it'll be Tua to start out the year to throw the ball to. So, yeah, Elijah Surratt there at 81. I think the fall was long enough. I think he's a really good player. I think he could be a fun piece in the NFL, and he goes here at 81 to Atlanta. So, Igbinosun waits to see another day. We'll see where he does end up, but I don't think it'll be long um, for him to go. Here at 82, though, I do have the Vikings looking to the interior defensive line. They go with Jermont McCoy and Jadarian Price, so I think they've had a very good draft so far. But on the interior defensive line, I have another one of my favorite guys in Chris McClellan going here at pick 82. I think he has a lot of upside in terms of the interior defensive line, playing that 3 tech. He can play the 1 tech too if you really want him to, but versatile piece on that defensive line, I think has a really high upside there. 5 sacks this past year from Mizzou. That's why I think he can play 3 tech. He's got the size, but he also has the athleticism, so if you want him to play 1 tech, he certainly could, but if you want him to play 3 tech, he definitely could as well. So I think that's a great pick there for the Vikings there at 82. And then here at 83, I do have the Panthers going out and getting their tight end, so another offensive weapon for Bryce Young. Max Clare still here. I think it makes too much sense not to. You're pulling the trigger there at 83 with the kind of receiving tight end. If we look to Purdue when he was there in 2024, but was asked to block a little bit more for Ohio State this past season. I think there's flashes there in terms of a blocker, but he's more of a receiving tight end, which is what he was asked to do at Purdue, which is why he's so good at it. But could definitely develop as a blocker. Showed some promise there at Ohio State in terms of receiver as well as a blocker. So we'll see what he progresses to in the NFL. But I think he's an interesting player, and I think would be a great one there for Carolina at 83. At 84, the Packers just don't have many picks in the top 100, and I have them moving back with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars are giving them this, and then the Packers are giving back 160 is the final deal. So, or sorry, yeah, 160. Um, so that's what the Jaguars are giving up. Packers are getting 100 and 124, so they still have one more pick left in this, but they are getting a higher pick in terms of the later rounds. But the Jaguars are moving up to go get someone on the defensive line, which I think could wreak some havoc for them. If we look to their defensive line, Eric Armstead's a good player. Mason Smith, they just traded away. Javon Hamilton's decent, but I think you could use someone there. I know Rukaro might be decent for them, but I think Darrell Jackson Jr. is just such a polarizing player with decent athleticism for his size. He's a big human being at 6'5", 337. I mean, yeah. absolutely dominant interior force there, and I think that could be a very, very good pick there for the Jaguars, who I think have had a really good draft here so far with Trotter, Roush, and Jackson Jr. They got a lot of picks in the good range of this draft, and I think they really need to capitalize on it to move forward. But I think Darrell Jackson Jr. is a great player, and I think that's a great pick for them at 84. At 85 here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've gone with Concepcion, Abney, and Washington Jr. So, um, I don't think they need a Igbinosun, but that could certainly be interesting. I actually have them because if we look to their offensive tackle spot, I think Faltanu is a decent player, but I think they need either their swing tackle or another tackle in there, and I have them going with Mr. Markel Bell out of Miami here. I think he's a polarizing player. I think he's an interesting player that has got such a unique size at 6'9", 345, and I think could do some really good things in the NFL. So we'll see how he develops as a Steeler. I really like him for Houston just to be an antecessor to Trent Brown, but I mean we'll see what Markel Bell does. I think he again a polarizing player. I think could do some really good things in the league, and if he develops for a year or two in Pittsburgh, he can eventually become your starting tackle and be very good at that. So Markel Bell at 85 to the Steelers is something I really like and something that I have happening. At 86 to the Los Angeles Chargers, I have them going with one of my favorite players in this draft, and that is the nickel out of South Carolina in Jalen Kilgore. I think they could use him as a safety. I think they could use him as a nickel. You don't really have many players for those two roles. I mean, Derwin James is going to play in the box for you, but I mean, if we go to the Chargers, where are they? 123 there. I mean, if we look to it, you have Tariq Still, but no nickels really. Derwin James, your only standout safety. I mean, I like Elijah Molden, don't get me wrong, but like I think Kilgore's going to have a role there right away, and I think that's a very, very solid pick there for the Chargers at 86. At 87, though, to the Miami Dolphins, I do have them going with an edge rusher because, again, if we go back to this, obviously not everyone's there, but Chop Robinson is their best edge, in my opinion, right now. And I think Romello Height could come in and do a role for them. Very good player for Texas Tech, and I think could show some promise in the league. So that's who I have there at 87 to the Dolphins to improve their pass rush, hopefully, just slightly in some capacity because that roster needs a lot of work. Here at 88, we do have the Jaguars back on the clock. It seems like they're picking. I don't know why it keeps changing the teams, but it seems like they're picking like every 10 picks. And it's actually like every 5, 79, 84, and 88. But I do have the Jaguars. Or, well, I guess I might have to rethink it. I was thinking Deontay Lawson, but I forgot I went with Josiah Trotter earlier in this round. So maybe it's not that. If we do look to the Jaguars, they could. Um, use some help on the interior of the offensive line. They could just use help on the offensive line in general. Um, and, I think all the top centers are still available. So maybe you just take a swing and see if you can land on one and see if they eventually start. Um, you know, you're in a good spot, though, for the Jaguars. I think you have a really, really good roster. And I'm saying that as a Texans fan. So it does hurt to say a little bit. But I don't think Robert Hainsley's stopping anyone. I don't think Cole Van Lannon is stopping anyone from coming in and trying to compete. So we're going to bring in a center to the Jaguars. And for me, I think Logan Jones is probably the best option for them. So scratch the Deontay Lawson thought. It's going to be Logan Jones here at 88 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think makes some sense. And then we have his teammate going here at 89 in Bo Stevens to the Pittsburgh Steelers, two Iowa guys, two guys on the offensive line going back to back there. Here at 92, the Miami Dolphins, they've already gone with one receiver, but I don't think that stops them from going two. And I have them going with the explosive receiver out of Oklahoma, um, to see if Malik Willis can throw that deep ball. You want to give him some weapons to do a lot of different things so he can show you why you paid him that much money. And I think Deion Burks is certainly someone that does do that. I think Bo Stevens might start right away after losing Sumalau or to the Cardinals in Pittsburgh. And then Logan Jones is someone that might come in and start right away too for the Jaguars there. Here at 91, though, I have back-to-back receivers going. So the AFC East is stacking up on wide receivers. I have Ted Hurst going here to the Buffalo Bills. Glad I was able to get him in here. I think he could go a lot higher than this in real life, but I just really, really like him as a player. And I think the Bills do need an X receiver, maybe even a Y, but Ted Hurst is a big guy that can catch the ball really well. Really showed out at things like the Senior Bowl as well. He's a really, really good player, productive in college, and I really like him as a prospect. So, 91 to the Bills he goes and gives Josh Allen another option there. 92 to the Cowboys. I think Igbenogson still being here is definitely a shocker, and I think this is where his fall finally stops. So here at 92, I do have the Cowboys scooping him up off the back of the Odigizua trade. The Cowboys do get Davidson Igbenogson in, so two guys with names that are hard to pronounce go in exchange for each other, basically. Igbenogson for Odigizua, and Cowboys go with two Ohio State guys in this draft so far. Here at 93, I have the last trade of this mock draft, and it's actually just not any teams here. It's the team that's at 100 with the Green Bay Packers. I have them giving up 100 and 153 to get to 93, and I have the Rams giving back 207. So Packers move up 7 spots, but they move back 47 in the long run. But I do have them moving up to go getting a guy at the edge position because, I mean, obviously they do have Micah Parsons there. But I do think they need another one in terms of edge rushers after losing Rashawn Gary. So I have them moving up and going with someone that I really like in Kieran Crawford there. So I think that's a fun pick. And I think, the Packers could do a lot of fun things with Kieran Crawford to allow him to develop. At 94 for the Giants, this is probably the shocker of this draft so far, but I have them going with a linebacker, and I had them going with Jimmy Rolder, but now that Deontay Lawson's available, I think I'm going to minimize that and go with Deontay Lawson here. But I did have them going with Jimmy Rolder out of Michigan. I think he's an incredible player, and I think he could do a lot of good things in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's selected around this range, to be honest. I think he's that good of a player, but here at 94, I am going to not go with Jimmy Rolder. I'm going to go with Deontay Lawson, but enough respect shown to Jimmy Rolder to, I guess, acknowledge him there at least. I think the film's incredible on Jimmy Rolder. He just absolutely flipped a switch sometime in his collegiate career. Maybe it was 2024, but I mean, he was so good this past season for Michigan, just everywhere around the ball, and I think he could do a lot of exciting things in the NFL. He's like a traditional linebacker too, so um, maybe it's even a better pick to go with Rolder at 94 compared to Deontay Lawson, but Lawson's the pick there at 94. Moving on to 95 with the Patriots, sorry. I had them going with Logan Jones to begin with, but now that Logan Jones is not available, I do not know what they go with. And if we look to their roster, I actually am going to get Jimmy Rolder in here. Why not? We're going to get him at 95 to the Patriots. I think they could go with a linebacker somewhere in the draft. And I think Jimmy Rolder sounds like a variable guy, to be honest. So Jimmy Rolder here into the third round with the New England Patriots. I really like that pick. I think he's an incredible player. So I sneak him into the third round here. I don't know if that happens in real life, but I think he's incredible in terms of a Mike linebacker who's just a leader, always around the ball, always flying to the ball. So I think, if you're looking for someone to do that in New England, then Jimmy Rolder could definitely be one of those guys. And you missed out on Logan Jones, who goes to the Jaguars there at pick 88, and you go get your linebacker of the future with Jimmy Rolder. Here at 96, I think it's a blessing to the Seahawks that Jonah Coleman's still available to them. And I think it's a no-brainer for them there to just really try to get someone to take some carries off of Zach Charbonnet after he got injured last year. And also a really good pass-blocking running back as well, Jonah Coleman is. So he goes there at 96 to Seattle and maybe becomes a bell cow back right away. We don't know. But here at 97 to the Vikings, I don't know if you can rely on Mr. Kelly every single game of the year. Ryan Kelly there. So maybe look to a center. And I think this is late enough to, really, get a competitive backup who may even come in and, play a lot of snaps for you. And that's going to be Jake Slaughter for me. He's my center 3. I have it as Lou Jones, and then I have Slaughter, Coogan, Zune, then Hecht. So I guess we'll see that in a couple picks if that's anything to tell you. But here at 70 or 98, sorry, not 78. I think if you're the Eagles, you've had a really good draft so far, but I think you need someone to back up Lane Johnson and eventually come in and, be a potential starter. I think Demetrius Cronover could definitely be that. He's older, though, and I really like the idea of Travis Burke getting into these top ranges. 6'9", 315, just a huge behemoth of a tackle, and was really good last year for Memphis, and I think could definitely go early in this draft just because of the size and the arm length and all that he does possess. So I do have him going here at 98 to Philadelphia. Which I think is a really, really fun pick. I think him and Rolder are two of the most under the radar guys that I think could actually sneak into one of these rounds just because of the either smarts that Jimmy Rolder possesses or size that Burke possesses. But here at 99, I did sneak the idea of Pat Coogan as my um, was it fourth favorite center? Sorry, I need to retrace my steps. Lou, Jones, Slaughter, Coogan, Zune, Hecht. Yeah, that's the order. So yeah, I have Pat Coogan going here at 99. I don't know why he's not getting enough hype in real life, but I think he's someone that teams are gonna love. One of the best players in this class, in my opinion. Especially on the interior of the offensive line, and I have him going here at pick 99 to the Baltimore Ravens. So a lot of offensive linemen in this range with Jones, Stevens, Slaughter, Burke, Coogan, 3 in a row, and then 2 in a row up there from Iowa. And that's not stopping. Um, to close out this mock draft, I have the Packers, who actually traded for this Rams pick, moving back up with the amount of capital that they've received throughout this entire mock draft. So where are these Packers at? Green Bay, Green Bay, Green Bay. 120. There they are. So they're giving up 120 and 201 and then a six next year in exchange for 252. So the Packers are moving up and they are going to go get the last offensive lineman in this, and that is going to be Mr. Billy Strouth out of Notre Dame to close out this draft. So I guess it is technically analyzing our draft. So this is the first round that you saw yesterday, and then if we go to the full results, we can show you what happened in round two. Terrell, Miller, Parker to start out. Again, 3 Clemson guys. Banks, Bell, Woods. 4 out of 6 with Clemson, as I talked about earlier. Warren, Johnson, Rodriguez, Bernard, Basantis, Miller, Stowers, Howell, Cisse, and Price or Hunter round out the first half of round two, and then Price, Golday, Rutledge, Pons, Abney, Halsey, Lawrence, Trotter, and Bell start out the second half of round two, followed by Moore, Brazel, Hill, Williams, Holton, Stukes, and Yakis to end round two. So um, that is how everything turned out in round two. I'll slow it down a little bit, scroll very slowly just so if you want to pause, you can pause in the right range and see what your team did in round two. Um, so there's that. In round three, Cardinals started out with R. Mason Thomas. Titans go with Dunker. Patriots go with Josephs. Then you got Branch, Washington Jr., Scott, Orange, Tiernan, Sutton, Stribling, Farmer, Lewis, Benny, Roush, Delp, Surratt, McClellan, and Claire to start out the first half of round three. And then you go Jackson Jr., Bell, Kilgore, Height, Jones, Stevens, Burks, Hurst, Igbenosin, Crawford, Lawson, Rolder, Coleman, Slaughter, Burke, Coogan, and Strouth to end round three. So again, I'll scroll to the top of round three and scroll very slowly so you can pause in case you missed what I heard about your team, because I know teams like the Jaguars have a plethora of picks in this range as well as the Miami Dolphins. So after this, I'll scroll back up to the first round if anyone wants to go see that as well. I'm sure a lot of people do to see what their team did. So you can watch the video to see what I talk about with your guys. But here's the first round. Mendoza 1, Reese 2, Maui 3, Love 4, Bailey going to the Chiefs at 5. They move up to 5. Styles at 6, Carnell Tate at 7, Bain at 8, Downs at 9, Tyson at 10, Delane at 11, Freeling at 12 after moving down with the Cowboys, Fano at 13, Ione at 14, Sadiq at 15, Lemon at 16, Proctor at 18, or 17, sorry, McCoy at 18, Falk at 19. Browns with the Sonny Styles trade get Omar Cooper as well. Thieneman to the Bears after they move up with the Steelers a couple spots. Pregnon at 22, Mesidor at 23, Young at 24. Travis Hunter trade. Concepcion goes to the Steelers after they move down. CJ Allen to the Bills, Boston to the 49ers, Simpson to the Cardinals after they moved with the Texans. Giants get 29 with the Rams after moving with the Giants, or with the Chiefs. Sorry, the Giants can't move with the Giants. The Giants move with the Chiefs. And then Lomu to the Dolphins there. So a lot of movement in the first round with the Chiefs, the Browns moving, and then obviously the Dexter Lawrence trade, and then the Falcons trade, the Sauce Gardner trade, the Micah Parsons trade, this time the Thieneman trade, the Travis Hunter trade, Ty Simpson, Jalen Waddle as well. So a lot going on in the first round here. I think it's something we could expect. Obviously this is not going to be perfect, but let me know what you all think about this down in the comment section below. These full results too. You obviously saw the first round earlier on today, and now you get round 2 and 3. So let me know what y'all think about day 2 of the NFL draft and my predictions. I think a lot of trades did go down. If I have my notes here, so I can go full trade. And the amount of trades that did happen. So we got 1 and 2, 3, that happened on draft night in the first round, and then you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 14 overall trades in days 1 and 2. I think the Packers, the Texans, the Giants are the most move heavy teams probably. Um, and the Steelers moved around a lot too. So let me know what y'all think about this down in the comment section below. Obviously, some teams don't move around the board as much as others. The Lions moved a little bit too. So again, let me know what y'all think down in the comment section below. It takes a lot of effort to put these videos up. So if you did enjoy, please be sure to like, subscribe. It does mean a lot. And try my hardest out here. So I would really appreciate some support. But thank y'all so much for watching. As always, it's Texans Takeover. I'm out. Thanks again for watching. Peace.